Hi everyone, Asim here again, your host and the founder of Healingclouds. Today we are here in conversation with Colin Minto. Colin is an expert in global talent acquisition, employer brand, human capital planning, mental well-being strategy, and workforce stress diagnosis. Worked and delivered for some of the world's largest organizations, including Marriott, G4S, AXA, White Bread, Thales, and many more. Mentally ill with OCD, which destroyed half of his life through panic and rumination. But since winning the battle to get it under control, he champions the upside of being mentally ill and leverages the skills, qualities, and capabilities it has brought to him. So thank you once again, Colin, for being here with us today.
And that's my absolute pleasure.
You know, it's amazing how candid and how open you are talking about mental health, mental illnesses, and especially your struggles with mental health. So I'd like to kick off the conversation by saying, you know, why are you so open about it? And perhaps why do you think it's important to be open about it as well?
Great question. Thank you. I think the reason I'm so open, there's a number of reasons really. One is my differentiator. And I'm now, after I've gone through the journey, I'm comfortable with the fact that OCD, I've said many times in the past, OCD and the learnings I got from OCD, it completes me. It is part of me, and it's not something I'm embarrassed about or concerned about sharing, because without it, I wouldn't be able to do some of the things that I'm capable of doing. Obviously having OCD and suffering from it, but I would say being a survivor of it, it was some terrible dark times. As you said in the intro, it destroyed half of my life between the age of 10 to 32. But by getting on top of it and finding the key to do so, and then reflecting back and saying, well, what is it actually brought to me? What does it allow me to do? It's given me a solutions brain. It's given me an unbelievable ability to proofread work. I'm a great person as a consequence of it, because I've been ruminating over such dark times. And I obviously want to seek, the lighter times. And it's given me skills, qualities, capabilities that I know I wouldn't have if I didn't have OCD. And then equally, because I have survived it, it's in my makeup, and I think it's my duty to talk about it in case my journey and what I've gone through and how I interpret the situation and the upsides of being mentally ill could maybe benefit others and help them follow the path or follow their own path and get to a situation where I am. I actually feel very, very fortunate, and I don't think that's something I need to hold back on sharing.
Can you tell us a little bit more about OCD, Colin? I mean, what are the challenges that one would have if they're suffering from OCD?
So OCD is something you're born with. It's part of the brain that's doesn't function correctly, and essentially, if you're familiar with the fight or flight mechanism, so if you faced with a dangerous situation, it's a mechanism, it's a reaction that kicks in. The adrenaline starts pumping, and you react to save yourself or to save others. And it's that mechanism that kicks in when it's not supposed to, when you have OCD. So a thought that someone without OCD might have, which wouldn't even register as a concern or a thought, with someone with OCD, it registers, and you go into a panic about that. The best way I've kind of can describe this is, if you were watching a slasher movie where someone was killing people with a knife, and then the next day someone without OCD saw a knife and thought, oh crikey, I could pick that up and hurt people, it wouldn't register. But with me, I would look at a knife and think, oh, I could maybe do something with that. Then I'd go, actually, am I capable of doing that? Oh my God, I could be a murderer. And then I'd start to try and I obviously panic about that, and I try to work out in my head that I wasn't capable of doing that. So that's where the ruminations would come on. So there's all kinds of different things that trigger it, and it gets worse and worse and worse if it's left uncontrolled. This is why people sometimes have issues with cleanliness. So you might touch the bottom of your shoe, and again, without OCD, you've just touched the bottom of your shoe. But with OCD, you've touched the bottom of your shoe, and you might think, what if there's a chemical on there? And I touch a door handle and someone ingests that and dies. Oh my God, I could go to prison. So this is that, the intrusive thoughts, and then the panic, and then the ruminations. And as I said, if left unchecked, you end up, or I ended up panic about everything that was possibly out there that could impact on me and others, and the world. And then I tried to put it right in my mind, and I started to avoid a lot of situations, so that I was never in that situation in the first place. So it's hugely debilitating, but you can control it, and you can get through it, and you can undo all of that with the right approach, the right therapy, and then if you can get on top of it and come through the other side, like me, you maybe can reflect back and understand that it does bring you experience, and it brings you gifts. I call them my superpowers, and my differences.
Well, to be honest, calling them your superpowers, obviously that's a really positive way to look about it, and that's something that you can do to better manage your own condition. However, what would you say for people around you, like your friends, your family? So if we know somebody who is perhaps suffering from OCD, how can we be more mindful, and how can we support that person?
Well, it's a great question, because so many people do come to me because of my background, and ask for my advice on this. Very, very simple. First of all, you need to go to see the medical profession. Absolute first thing I tell anyone that asks me for help is to go to your GP and explain the situation, and let them give you access to the support, the therapy, maybe the medication that you require. It's so important. From my perspective, what helped me, and this is what I don't necessarily, I'm not a practitioner, I'm not a clinician, so I don't say you must do this, but I explain how I got on top of things. I got myself physically fit. So I made sure that I was sleeping, I was relaxing, I was meditating, I was lots of breathing exercises, lots and lots of exercise to burn off adrenaline, eating better, drinking less. One of my vices, unfortunately, still. I didn't smoke, and I did everything I possibly could to get fit, because I think the physical fitness has a direct correlation on optimal mental fitness. So I always recommend people to get in tip-top physical condition once they've obviously sought the medical advice. That medical advice will hopefully get you on the path to therapy, which in my in my situation, I benefited greatly, ultimately, from cognitive behavioural therapy, which was the mechanism to use to unpick the intrusive thoughts and ruminations that were going around that. So essentially, once you can understand that the impacts, the panic and the symptoms you're having are symptomatic of an illness, and you can come to terms with the fact that you're ill, and that there are things that you can do to correct that, then you can start to become comfortable that it's not just you, there's other people, it's a medically proven illness and situation, and there's things that you can do to control it. So I turned OCD on my OCD. I pretty much understood everything about it. I knew that it was a medical condition. I got myself physically fit, and then I started on the cognitive side. And interestingly, what you are asked to do in cognitive behavioural therapy is to kind of do the things that you are fearful of. So I talked about touching the shoe, and then maybe going into a panic, thinking that you might harm someone as a consequence of doing it, and therefore you would wash your hands. What they encourage you to do is touch your shoe and ride the panic and allow it to be there, and not to then wash your hands, and see what happens. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and it will be the hardest thing that anyone does in their life. But by doing that and making sure that you don't engage with the panic and you don't engage with the ruminations and the compulsions. Eventually, I found when I did it for the very first time, as I said, very hard, and I found the strength to do it. I realised that no harm did come to anybody as a consequence of me touching my shoe. And what that then does is it unpicks it in your brain, it retrains your brain, and it allows you to think more rationally about having those thoughts. So it's it is a incredibly intense illness and very, very challenging. But advice is go and see the doctor, get yourself physically fit, go on the journey with cognitive behavioural therapy, talk to others about it if you're comfortable to do so, find others that will happily speak to you about their journey, and hello, I'll gladly do that, and you will find that you're not alone, and you will find that there are things that you can do to make yourself feel better and to unpick this awful disease.
Colin, first, I mean, it's amazing how positive you are and how positively you are speaking about the whole condition, but then we also spoke about the negative effects of the condition. So I mean, when we talk about, let's say, productivity, because I mean that obviously impacts a lot of us, not just at work but also at home. So how do you think OCD impacts our productivity? Is there a negative side to it or a positive, or is that up to you to turn it into a negative or positive? I mean,
there will be an impact on productivity if it's left uncontrolled and isn't tackled, because you get absolutely consumed in your thoughts and absolutely consumed in your the compulsions and ruminations, and obviously that's going to detract from your life and detract from your work. I'm proud to say I never took a day off sick with OCD.
Wow.
But I would quite honestly suggest and say that at times I was very, very unproductive, because I would lock myself away in toilet cubicles to think over and over and over and over and panic and ruminate about the things that were troubling me at the time. So there would have been a lot of lost productivity there. But as I said, proud I didn't take a day off sick. On the flip side, if you can go on the journey to combat it, to get it under control, that's where I feel that we can start celebrating the upsides and the increases in productivity. So I talked about having a solutions brain because I've been panicking about so many catastrophic things. I don't fear going into a business situation where we might be doing something outside the box. In fact, it's normally me that's suggesting doing something outside the box because my brain's wired very differently. And I'll be saying, but this could be done and that can be done. Come on, let's expand our brains on this and expand our mind on it. And I think that's where I have and other people that have got on top of there and are controlling their mental difference, as I like to call it, can leverage what they've learned from that and leverage their behaviors and the difference that it brings. So, I'll be putting together all the jigsaw piece puzzles into a different picture to what's on the box, because it's just how my brain works. And invariably, in a lot of cases, it's better than the picture on the box. And then I'm not that fearful of going in to make those things happen, because I've dealt with much worse things in my head than maybe a technology not working on day one of going live. So yeah, the answer to the question is yes, it's going to have an impact. But if people can go on that journey, seek medical support, get themselves physically fit, go on the cognitive behavioural therapy or other therapeutic journey, and understand what it is that's impacting on them, and accept it, and say, okay, I accept it, and hopefully, like me, get it under control, and then dial back and say, so what does it bring to me? What skills have I now got that I can take into everything I do in life? And you mentioned I'm optimistic and I'm very chipper about it. I've always having OCD trying to trigger in my head. I'm always having anxious feelings, especially at the moment. And as a consequence of that, in my journey, I now know how to combat it and write it very, very quickly. So that's going to have a good impact on productivity, because unfortunately there are people that can't do that. And this is why I love talking about this, because I really want everyone that is having difficulties and challenges to know that you can get through it. And once you do, the light at the other side is actually brighter. I hope it gives comfort to people.
Well, I mean, once again, I can't say this enough, because you are really optimistic. But have you always been optimistic, or have you worked on being optimistic, especially when it came to your condition?
I think I was born an extrovert, and I've always loved life, and I've always been very optimistic. When this hit me at the age of 10, obviously that had a massive impact on me and changed things. So yes, I'm a glass half full person. I think I'm more glass half full because, I think I've come through the darkest times that I could have possibly experienced, and maybe others too. So that gives me a comfort factor that I'm a survivor. I think this has probably honed and targeted my enthusiasm and optimism about things, it helps me to remain optimistic. So, like everyone at the moment, the pandemic that we're going through is hugely challenging. And it's why I do various videos to say, wake up with purpose, get inspiration from different things, because, it will be having such a severe impact on people, and it will be reducing people's mood and reducing people's optimism. So, trying to get people to think more optimistically, and me going public about mine and sharing my story, it helps me. Definitely, it gives me that buzz. It's my therapy as well as potentially others as well. Always been optimistic, but I think I'm much more optimistic by scaling this mountain and coming down the other side safely.
And you rightly said, I mean, especially during this time of crisis and the time of uncertainty, it is, I mean, we have to look at the bright side, and we have to be as more positive as possible. Can you tell us a little bit more about your venture, A People Business? How did that all start, and why?
Yeah, so obviously I'm not there anymore. I'm with Marriott as their VP of TA talent and employer brand for EMEA. But for 3 years, I decided to make mental health and wellbeing my cause. And I was fortunate enough to be in a position to do so, because I've always had some very big roles in recruitment and HR, and did very well out of consultancy. But I kind of picked up on the amount of information 3 years ago that was coming out from celebrities and royals, and to a certain extent business, around mental health and well-being and how important it was. And I think I had my, I think it's called an epiphany. I had my calling, and I thought, do you know what? I got through some horrible times, and I can see the benefits of that journey. And no one's really talking about this from an HR perspective and from an HR lens. So I was at very interestingly, I was at the House of Lords at a BAME event, and I was talking to a senior person within the HR space, and they said, Colin, why are you here? And I said, well, I'm passionate about difference, and I'm passionate about diversity. So I always want to support these events, but I'm just a bit disappointed we're not doing enough about mental health and mental well-being. And he said, wow, would you go public then? And would you talk about it? And I thought, possibly, maybe. And we had a good conversation about it. This gentleman was Peter Cheese, the CEO of the CIPD. And we've known each other for a long time, and I said, no, I would do that. I think I'll just box it off with my boss, the wife, because this could have an impact on me. And I did have the concern and fear that if I went public, would anyone ever want to employ me again? That stigma is so strong, even someone as optimistic as me. So I spoke it through with her, and she said, if that's what you want to do, Colin, then I fully support you. And I was featured in the CIPD magazine with a couple of other people as senior leaders within HR that were happy to talk about it. And the phone didn't stop ringing off the hook.
Wow.
The email didn't stop coming in with people giving me so much support and so much love. And requests to come and speak at this conference, and would you come and talk to this to my teams? And I just suddenly thought, wow, I'm a consultant in recruiting and HR technology, and I'm not going to profess I'm a clinical professional in mental health and wellbeing, but hey, maybe I can make a difference. So I decided to do so. I partnered up with an incredible individual called Paul Finch, who survived bowel cancer.
Wow.
And all of the mental impacts associated with that. And we formed a business that consulted with other big businesses and organisations on mental health and wellbeing strategy and mental health and wellbeing solutions. And then we built a diagnostic in a stress diagnostic that focuses on workforce stress diagnosis and identifying the stress hierarchies across different audiences within an organisation, so that people can tailor their mental health and wellbeing budgets and approach to those that are suffering the most and those that are experiencing most difficulty. So the premise of that business is to help people and to help businesses to help people. So it was an incredible time, fascinating time. And the business is still going very, very strong. And I'm still involved in a small way. But my path was to go back into large corporates in resourcing and recruitment and employer brand. But it was amazing. It's helped so many organisations and ultimately helped so many people. So thrilled and delighted it's going strong, and I'm still a part of it.
That's amazing. I mean the whole backstory is amazing, from how it all started from your own personal experiences. That's just fantastic. Colin, speaking about organizations and people within the organizations, because people are the most important asset to any organization. So and there's so many studies out there how important it is for an organization to take care of their employees' mental health, mental well-being. And there's so many stats out there as well. But I'd like to hear from you, because you've been in that space. I mean, you're still within that space. So how important is it really for an organization to take care of their employees' mental health?
It's the most important thing. Their physical and mental well-being, it's the most important thing, in my honest opinion. It's why I joined Marriott. Marriott is an incredible organisation which has the biggest heart of any organisation I've had the pleasure to work with. And I think it's 92 years it's been operating, and from the very, very start, the original Mr. Marriott's mantra was, look after the people and they'll look after the guests, and the guests will come back again. And that looking after people is looking after them in every single capacity, all the way through now to us being much more open about mental health and well-being. So, I personally believe if people come to work and they feel comfortable to bring their whole selves to work, talk about whatever it is they need to talk about in confidence, with support, in an organisation that cares about you as an individual, that cares about your finances, cares about the relationships you're in, cares about your health, then you are going to absolutely be the most productive you can possibly be and the most inspirational you could possibly be in that organisation. Yeah, you're going to dedicate yourself to that organisation. Excuse me. The trials and tribulations of working from home. You're gonna dedicate yourself to that organisation. You're gonna stay with that organisation, and by staying with that organisation and being super productive, you have an impact from in my world on recruiting, talent acquisition, you're going to have a reduced requirement to recruit, because you're going to retain people, and people are going to be so productive. You're not going to need 2 people to do the job of 1. So you automatically give yourself an amazing foundation, an incredible foundation of incredible people that are there supporting each other, being compassionate, looking out for each other, and trying to come up with the best solutions for every single challenge that business throws you. So, in my opinion, retention, looking after people's mental health and well-being, looking after their physical and financial health and well-being is the absolute foundation for any awesome organization. And if you're led by incredible leaders, which we are, and a lot of organizations are, that subscribe to that, then it's no secret that those organizations are the most successful organizations on the planet.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because it is really important for, and like you said, a lot of organizations are subscribing to that. However, there is still a lot of gap in the market as well, unfortunately. But however, I think perhaps maybe, this whole pandemic and the crisis that we're in has perhaps accelerated that awareness and that education around the importance of mental health. But do you think that this is only limited to the time of crisis, or the world has changed and we will, now look at mental health differently moving forward?
I think the world was already changing. And, I think we need to give ourselves in the world and in business credit that it became a subject that more and more people were comfortable to talk about openly and publicly. And so I think we were changing. And I think once the pandemic has hit, and again, people are isolated at homes, and more and more people are suffering from anxiety-related conditions and illnesses and symptoms. This has really, really brought it home that we were on the right path, and we need to continue to be on that path. So it's been an accelerator. I think when we come through this, we're going to have to learn from this situation. There's so much learning, and I know it's difficult to talk about upsides when we're in the middle of a pandemic, but again, it's in my nature. There is so much incredible learning that's going to come from this, on how people looking at themselves and how they responded personally to this, how they helped others, how we got behind national institutions like the NHS and other health services, and our emergency services and schools and all the fabulous people, how we view the role of agriculture and food production and the supermarket supply chain. This has changed everyone's perspective on life, the world, and what really, really matters. We've been looking at ourselves from a health perspective. Been looking at our businesses on how this is impacting on them. So much incredible learning that's going to come out of this. But one of the things that will stick and will stay is that we need to be more human, and we need to be more compassionate. We need to understand how we can be physically and mentally healthy and healthier, and keep going on that journey, because it's I suppose poor mental health is going to really, really signal challenge. And it's really going to impact. I mean, unfortunately, I was thinking about this the other day. Kids that are in homeschooling at the moment and being totally taken out of their comfort zones for about 8 weeks, and going into a completely different situation. I'm fearful of what impact that is going to have in the years to come, because they've gone through that experience. I mean, I've even heard people talking about this being something that will create PTSD in people. I just don't think we can underestimate what the impact of this is going to have on people now and in the future, and generations to come even as well. So we're going to come out of this, and there's going to be a much, much bigger focus on mental health and well-being, and a more strategic focus. I think we've been very tactical in the past, and looking at things that we can do to fix. I think people will be now looking at cause and understanding and trying to work out. So what are the audiences that are at most risk and why? And what is it that we're doing that's potentially going to trigger those risks? So what is it we can do? How can we reset the clock in our business and make sure that we are not going to push people to a limit where they start having difficulties and challenges? So I think, a positive out of a negative is that there's going to be a much more strategic look rather than tactical look on this whole subject of not just mental health, but health in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that, obviously a lot of people have lost their lives and a lot of people have lost their loved ones, and, people are stranded at home. But yeah, there is so much positive that has also come out of it. And now I think it's our fundamental duty as well not to forget, what we've been gone through, because unfortunately the other problem human beings have is that we also have a very short-term memory. To have this and tomorrow we have something else and we just forget. But hopefully this time around we will not forget. And you spoke about compassion, and 18th on Monday onwards is the Mental Health Awareness Week, and this year the theme is kindness, for instance. So being kind to one another and being compassionate. I think we are in self-isolation, but perhaps the world has not been as closer or as united together as ever before, because on a global scale we're all feeling and going through the same thing as one another. So I think remembering this is also very important. And like you rightly said, I mean, this is not just limited to now, but not just a couple of years, but perhaps even generations from now. So it is really important that we fix things to the core.
Yeah, no, I can't agree more. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I had two conversations earlier in the day where this came up in conversation about the whole world is invested in this situation. It's affected every person on the planet. And in some cases, devastatingly. I mean, the amount of people that have lost their lives is absolutely tragic. And I think we owe it to everyone that we come through this and we learn from it, and we take that learning. And it's been so difficult seeing the harrowing scenes on the TV about just how much impact this is having on families. And communities. It's shocking. So it is our duty as humans to take from that whatever we can to support and protect those people that have been impacted severely, and to ensure that we just don't allow this to happen again. And that everybody that's going to be impacted in the short, medium and long term is supported and given what they need to come to terms with it, and to hopefully get back to some level of normality, whatever that normality will be. So yes, this is Sharpen the Mind. This is going to be a very, very long tale, and we must never ever forget the loss, and we must never ever forget the learning. And we got to keep taking that forward, and hopefully avoid situations like this in the future. But if it does happen again, or another natural disasters or other situations, this experience will, I think, keep this generation thinking compassionately and kindly about their fellow citizens on the planet.
Absolutely. Well, I hope so too. And on that note, thank you once again, Colin, for your infectious positivity. Keep that always on. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much again for being with us today. And before you go, can you tell everybody how can they find you? I know you're very active on LinkedIn as well. So your social media handles, that'll be great if somebody wants to reach out to you.
Yeah, no problem. So at Colin Minto on Twitter, and I'm the only Colin Minto I think on LinkedIn. So search for me, do connect with me, do join the Mental Health in Business LinkedIn group that I've got on LinkedIn as well. And I'm always delighted to talk on this subject matter, as you now know, and whatever I can do to support people. If they're having difficulties and challenges as well, more than happy to help where I can.
Fantastic, Colin. Thank you so much for today.
My absolute pleasure. You take good care.
Thank you. You too.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.